Okay, guys. So it is the top of the hour. Welcome so much. Thank you so much for taking your time to listen about what Brian is going to speak on with generative AI prompting for government work. We're really excited to have you here today. Keep in mind just a couple general logistics on potential questions or tech support. So first and foremost, Shige is here. He will help you with any tech support needs that you have during this time. So please reach out to him as a direct message versus everyone. He will help you out if needed. Same thing with questions. Brian is here to answer questions. So please direct message him during the time as he goes through his speech here and webinar. Okay. And thank you again for joining us. We're really excited. We're going to welcome Brian. He's our educator and training leader with expertise in project management and generative AI. Brian has spent 15 years in education, including 10 years specializing in project management and 5 focused in artificial intelligence. Brian leads curriculum development and training initiatives that prepare government and private sector professionals for project management excellence, data-driven decision making, and practical AI application. If you have taken or plan to take any of graduate school's new AI courses, there is a chance that Brian either wrote the curriculum or is teaching the class himself. His hands-on approach and enthusiasm make learning engaging, practical, and fun. I'm sure you might have noticed already. And today, Brian brings his expertise to help us explore how we can improve prompting our generative AI tools and getting better results. So please join me in welcoming Brian Sims.
Hi, thank you very much for that introduction, Amanda. Hi, hello everybody. Ooh, clap explosion. Thank you for the reactions. I'm glad actually you all know where the reactions are. In a couple of minutes, I'll ask some questions where I'll ask you to use those reactions. So down there by where the leave button is, don't hit that. But about midway on that menu, there's share and react and things. So check out those react options there, and we'll be playing with some of those here in a little bit. But yeah, welcome everybody. As Amanda said, my name's Brian Sims. We'll spend the next hour together talking about generative AI prompting for government work. Um, we're going to cover a few things in our time today. First, we'll talk about what AI prompting is, and we'll go through some tips on how to get better results with your prompts. I have a couple of slides. I'm going to go out to a demo screen and show a few things, so you get to see this in real time and see how making little tweaks to our prompts can drastically impact the output that we get. So we'll look at that first and foremost. We'll talk a little bit about prompt frameworks. We'll talk about, because there's a whole bunch out there, as we'll discuss more. But we'll talk about components of a good one and just what they even are and how they play into the whole process. So we'll look at that a little bit. Um, really important to the whole process of learning about prompting and improving on your prompting is evaluating the responses. And, I tried this. That wasn't great. Let me do something else. So we'll take a good amount of time to talk about evaluating responses that we're getting from AI and what does that teach us about what we want to do differently next time and those sorts of things. And of course, AI discussion, right, would be complete without some discussion about, using it responsibly, especially for government work, right, where the public could possibly be impacted by what
Hey,
we're
good afternoon. Can you
uploading
give
and
me one
things.
quick second?
Um, Here, let me hit the mute there. So we'll talk about using AI responsibly and avoiding some of the common pitfalls that may occur, especially if you're really new to AI. So we'll go ahead and get started here. But I do have a couple of poll questions, which, as I mentioned, let's make use of the React. So, like, I will put up a thumbs up, for example. So we could use this to say, yes, that applies to me, or something else fun and creative, like like we were playing with before the recording started, some of us. But yeah, so my first question, find a reaction there that you think signifies how you're feeling about AI right now. Happy face, sad face, scared face, alien face. Yeah, okay. Lots of shock. Yeah, okay. A shock explosion. Some people really cool. I see some meh. Yeah, a little confusing. Got it. Wow, this is actually a really cool way to do this poll. Oh, hearts, dragon, devilly face. Got it. Pretty mixed bag. Got it. Somebody's with painting their nails about it, real confident. Okay, so super mixed bag. I feel like this is a very unofficial, non-statistical assessment. There was a lot of and and who's in there. So, okay, good. Well, that this is kind of designed for those types of folks, and even for those of you who expressed more familiarity with it, or just painting your nails on the subject, or putting on the cool shades. I bet I bet we'll cover something in here that you didn't already know about prompting and give you some good things to think about. So stick with us. Awesome. Real quick, maybe give me a thumbs up or something in the positive if you are using AI at work right now. Don't need to know if you're not, but if you are, just trying to get a sense of, okay, 50 some people, and we're in the 60s now, 80s almost. Okay, so you're using it at work. Okay, 60, 70. Okay, got it. Wonderful. Awesome. I know usually when we teach class, there's a big difference between people using it at work and people using it at home. How about thumbs up for I'm using it at home? And of course, if you're using it for both, go ahead and, thumbs up for both. 60s, 70s, 80s already, 90s now for home. Okay, triple digits. We've peaked triple digits for home. Okay, so that's usually what I see in class too, which makes sense, I think, for government work. More people using it at home than for work because of all kinds of restrictions and things. But okay, got it. Okay, well, that really helps me. That will help me tailor my demos a little bit and gives me some ideas. Okay, so thank you all for letting me know. Um, So AI can do a lot for us. Talk about this in a lot of classes, right? It can both, in our work as government employees or at home, it can make us, right, more productive, more creative, automate things that are repetitive. If we're trying to learn about something new, like sure, we could Google it, but you might have to open, 10, 20 tabs, watch some videos. You can probably find your way. But AI can be a real enabler for learning. Um, in fact, just goodness, in the last 30, 60 days or something, which actually really speaks to that last bullet there, enabling us to do things beyond our capabilities. I have um, uh, fixed our ice maker on my freezer, and I replaced some fuses in our dryer, all with the help of AI. Like I don't know anything about these appliances, but I mean, it's maybe worth saying the dryer doesn't work anymore. We had to get a new one, but I replaced the fuses and I cracked that open, and I think it was beyond repair. I think, or that's what I keep telling myself anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing, right? And that's actually an illustration I'll use. I'll bring that story back. Because that was kind of a good use case in actually how to prompt, right? Like when I first was like, oh, my ice maker isn't working, like, well, that's pretty darn general, right? But when I could give it, oh, it's a Maytag serial number, whatever, right? The recommendations got a lot more specific. So put a pin in that. We'll come back to that. But anyway, right? AI is amazing. It can do a lot for us, right? But only if we know how to use it. It was a couple of years ago, but a lot of people were out there saying that prompt engineering is one of the most important skills that people can be learning. So good on you for being here, right? Especially if you're really new to the AI space. This is a real skill, and it does take practice and experimentation. So you're in the right place. To understand how to use it best, we're gonna go back in time a little bit, or not exactly in time, but we'll get a basic understanding of how it works, because that foundational understanding, I think, will help us understand maybe why it's misfiring sometimes, or wow, that was really intelligent. How did it do that? So let's first get a little bit of context into what it is that we're working with. What is generative AI? Um, so generative AI, like artificial intelligence, right? Artificial intelligence is a super broad term that applies to a whole bunch of different things. Generative AI is as well. Very, very broad. What it stands for, though, is any system that generates new data. So that's new content. It could be text, it could be images, could be audio, video, code, a design, all kinds of could be anything, right? It's generating something new. Um, there are many different model types. You've probably heard in all the AI buzz of the last couple of years, like large language models or language models or diffusion models, something like that. You hear something model, right? There's a bunch of different model types. So that, the snowball gets bigger, right? There's a lot of possibilities with generative AI. Generally, too, they can respond to various inputs, again, depending on the model. Some of them are made to do just images, and that's what they excel at, or just video, or just code, or whatever. But some of them, like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude and things, are actually starting to get quite good at being able to do multiple things, those that were built that I just mentioned, were started out as text-based, but now they're getting better at doing images, and they can't quite do video and audio yet. But I'm sure it's only a matter of time before they get there. But again, anyway, generally they can respond to various inputs. It could be a text-based input. It could be an image, a sketch, audio clip, as I mentioned with some models. It depends. And generally, it's used for creativity, automation, simulating something, exploring some new domain, right? So pretty broad term that could apply to a lot of different platforms. And as far as how it works, well, like most modern AI, it starts with data. So it's fed large data sets, large whatever, pictures, text, those sorts of things. And it begins to learn from that data and build patterns. And just like the same way humans work, right? As we get exposed to lots of different things, we begin to, oh, okay, I think I get it. That red thing with the stem, it's got a leaf sometime, apple, right? So it starts to build these internal representations of the relationships and structures and features of the data that it's looking at. And using those internal representations, it starts to do something that's called probabilistic prediction to decide what is likely anyway to come next, what word is likely to come next based on all that it's seen, what pixel, frame, note, whatever is likely to come next. And from that, it generates something new. Because again, it's sampling what it's learned, and it's giving you something net new, right? Pardon me. So it's giving you that something new, and it improves. It can get better with our fine tuning and feedback, right? If you've ever submitted a prompt and maybe given it a thumbs up or thumbs down, or asked it to regenerate, or followed it up with some other prompts. No, that's not what I meant. Can you, whatever, however the prompt goes. It's taking note of that, and it's changing you're impacting that model, right? And that impact is new data, and the cycle starts over again, right? So the simplest way, that was kind of, even for being a summary, kind of a lot. I think a simple way to understand it is it's predicting, right? And this is going to come back. We're going to talk about this more in our webinar today. It is just predicting. It doesn't know things. It's predicting. Sometimes it's a darn good guess, right? I have looked at billions of cat pictures. I'm pretty sure we're looking at a cat. But it can be wrong, right? We've probably even all seen instances of it being wrong. So again, this is going to come back. We'll talk about this more in our time together, but it doesn't know what it's doing. It's artificial intelligence. So this is why, human review is going to remain essential. Especially if you're just starting out with a new model, like ChatGPT is now on 5.2. I'm forgetting the specific model numbers of some of the other ones, but new models come out all the time for all those different platforms. So maybe the model's new, or maybe you are new to AI. I talk about in a lot of the classes that these AI, I talk about them as AI assistants. And I think that that's a good way to think about them because, they probably need a little supervision, like a newly hired person would. Similarly, when we talk about prompt engineering, one of the prompting tips that we talk about in classes is using analogous tasks. And that got me thinking, what is an analogous task for this webinar? And so I would like to introduce our little AI bot here. He is going to be with us for the duration of the webinar to represent our prompting knowledge and our growing level of AI sophistication as our webinar progresses. So right now he's little, but we're going to start giving him some nutrition, and we'll watch him grow as our knowledge does. So let's get that started with some demos. So I want to show you all a few things. Let me get out to a live environment here. I know typically in class, lots of folks use ChatGPT. So I'll use that. And again, a lot of these, whether you're using ChatGPT or some other platform, they're all, fairly similar in their user interface and features and things. But I've logged into ChatGPT here, and I'm gonna start. First of all, I'll show you this. Sometimes this is unknown for folks. Not every platform has this, but if you're logged in, there's this option here to click, and you can go to a temporary chat. And this is kind of like going private with your browser. And as it says here, this chat won't remember your chat history, won't be used to train our models. So I don't want what it is doing. I don't want this to log it as a chat. I'm not going to come back to this. This is just for demo purposes. So I'm going to use a temporary chat. Also, if you ever have a tangential question you don't want your model to remember, you can use temporary chat. So there's our first little tip. But all right, so I'm going to go here to temporary chat and chat GPT, and I am going to say, me 10 things you can do. Tell me 10 things you can do. And let's see what ChatGPT tells us. I use this as an example a lot. And part of the reason I use this as an example a lot, by the way, is because it's always a little bit different. So it's kind of interesting to see how the number or the makeup of its answer changes. Looks like it brought a little humor into the conversation today. It says, all right, here are 10 things I can do. Think of me as a Swiss Army knife with options. Explain stuff clearly, help you write, gives me some examples, brainstorm ideas, solve problems, summarize. If you want, tell me exactly what you need right now, and I'll switch into that mode. Cool. It's using some emojis here. Okay, fine. First of all, that is a prompt. What I just put in there, tell me 10 things you can do, that's a prompt. So first little nugget of knowledge there. Um, but this comes up in class too, right? The Sometimes people will say, yeah, I've used ChatGPT or I've used Gemini or something, and like, look, see, I asked it what it can do, and none of that stuff is good, right? None of that's helping me. See, told you, ChatGPT sucks. This is why I don't use AI. Um, I want to demo something else here, right? We talk about this a lot in class. What the power of some specificity, right? So first, I had asked it, tell me 10 things you can do. I'm going to drop in, tell me things you can do for a government employee, and we'll observe. Got it. Practical, work friendly, and useful. Here are 10 things I can do for a government employee. Okay, more emojis. Not my favorite, but okay. I can edit and draft official documents, summarize laws, research and analysis support, prepare presentations, interpret data, improve public communication, workflow and productivity help, training and capacity, compliance and process checklists, scenario planning. So, right? What did I add there? Like 5 words, and I have a completely different list of 10 things than I had, right? So you'll see where this is going, I'm sure. And watch how this matures even further. She'll demonstrate something else. I'm going to now say, tell me 10 things you can do for a government employee looking to improve their productivity at work. Absolutely. This is my kind of problem to help with. Here are 10 concrete ways I can help with a government employee boosting productivity at work without burning out. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Design a realistic daily and weekly workflow. Prioritize work using impact and urgency. Streamline repetitive tasks. Reduce email and meeting overload, so on and so forth. 10 different things. Ah, and then look at this too. This is often really nice. Uh, Sometimes in its little tips here at the bottom, it's like, oh, good, that's exactly what I was going to ask anyway. Sometimes it isn't, and it's a really useful idea. Like, oh, you know what? I wasn't even going to ask for a checklist to hand out to students, but that's actually an amazing idea. Yes, please, ChatGPT. So it's sometimes worth checking out that little bookend there at the end. But right, so notice this progression. Um, I intentionally started with a pretty bogus prompt here, right? Just tell me 10 things you can do, but just adding a couple more words. Uh, I'm slowly getting more specific, and it's getting more and more useful. So that is something I want everybody certainly to walk away from this webinar with. More specificity is almost certainly going to improve your output. The other thing that I want to demo here or call out that I'm doing here is this is a chat, right? Unlike Google and some other ways to search, it is a chat. So this is a conversation and I can continue that conversation. So maybe it's starting to take me in a direction I don't like. Just like a conversation with a human, I can begin to correct it. Or maybe it mentions something that I don't quite understand, like, what do you mean by, I don't know, what do you mean by burnout? I don't understand that term. I could ask it. Tell me more about this. What is burnout? I don't get it. And right, just like a human conversation, we could take any path that the conversation could follow. Um, so that's another thing you can do, right? You can keep the conversation going, adding or removing specificity. One that I use all the time is, all right, because I often query AI about really technical topics and thing. I'm using it because I'm doing something that I don't necessarily understand. So it'll give me some explanation where I don't understand half of what it just said or whatever. So one I often put in there is like, can you explain this to me like I'm 10 years old? And that's actually very helpful. Because it usually is like, okay, imagine there's a bunch of Legos. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I can do that. So have some fun with it, right? The Arguably one of the many good things about this isn't a human assistant, right? It's not going to judge you. It's not going to tell your friends, that you had to that you didn't know what burnout meant, So it's okay, right? You can have a conversation with it. You can ask for simpler explanations, shorter explanations, or maybe say you're drafting something with it, and hey, I really like what you did there. But your summary is too long or short or something. You can even isolate on a specific part of its output and say, I like what you did, but I need you to expand on this particular part of it, right? So, so yeah, treat it like a human conversation. Again, as I mentioned, in class, I call it an AI assistant because I think that's a really helpful psychological way to think about it. Interact with this person as if it were a human. It's okay, talk to it, right? You're going to learn it's going to learn you, and you'll both be better working with each other at the end of it. While we're in this demo environment too, I want to talk about, and while we're discussing relating this to human interaction, um, right now, we're talking about 10 things it can do and what it can do for an employee and these sorts of things. And it makes sense, for me to stay in this conversation because we're continuing this chat, we're continuing this line of questioning. And what I'm doing here is called prompt chaining. So I'm chaining, not a super creative name, right? I'm just adding links to the chain of my prompt. But one thing I do want to call out is, if I totally threw ChatGPT a curveball here and said, hey, when do the Olympics start? Or what do you think the Commanders are going to look like next season or something, right? Like it could probably hang with me, right? And but it might be a little confusing, right? Because it might think, oh, do you mean like, oh, the commanders, are you looking to do 10 things with the commanders next year or what, you know? So I think that's worth calling out because A, it's just kind of good hygiene anyway, right? Especially if you're logged in and you're looking at past chats. Where are my past chats? Oh, here they are. I've got some different projects and stuff up here. But one, it's nice to just to start new chats for historical purposes. I can go back. Oh, I was working on this logo for this fictitious comm bank. Where was that conversation or where was that image? It's nice that I can go back and find it. But also, if you are just at like if you have this one continuous chat, not only is that make for kind of odd file management later. You may be getting kind of bogus responses from your AI assistant because it might think that you're trying to make things relate that aren't necessarily related. So what we talk about in class at actually about the same amount of length is creating a new chat whenever you are switching contexts. Again, good, better for you and your file management or your chat management, better for the AI. It knows clean slate. We're not talking about government employees anymore. We're now talking about, the over under on the, commanders next season, that kind of thing. So you may want to create a new chat if and when the time comes, but in the meantime, you can continue prompt chaining. And as you're prompt chaining, I do want to call out something else here too while I'm in a demo environment. Maybe I don't like this answer. And certainly, like we've been doing, I could continue to chain. I could say, make this shorter, make it longer. Actually, I only want five things, whatever. But maybe it's completely out in left field and I don't know. I just don't like it. I want it to take another swing. Sometimes folks don't notice this little icon down here, and again, this is ChatGPT specific, but all of the platforms have something similar. Maybe it's not this exact icon, but a try again like thing. Oops, let me admit one more guest here. So I'm going to go ahead and click this, and we'll watch what it does. When I click it, I can just say, try, you don't have to change your model or anything, just try again. But it does give me some little tips. It says, oh, do you want me to add details? Trying to figure out what I didn't like about it. You want more details, want to make it more concise, or do you want me to switch to, a model that reacts faster or one that searches the web a little bit more or go to some legacy model? What do you want to do? In this case, I'll just say, just take another swing at it. I don't like what you did. So we'll see what it gives us. And so here is our list of 10 things. Oh, and it's got a lot of stuff at the end for us. And this is kind of nice because I also wanted to call out, pardon me, that it remembers that it has answered this question for you before. So actually, well, I've done this a whole bunch where I actually liked those first couple, but ooh, these new ones are better. So I'm going to take I'm totally making this up, but the first five of these and then, the second five from its second list or something like that, right? So that's something else you can do. If you're not appreciating, if you don't like the output, you can just say, hey, take another swing at this with that try again button. And you can also, if you need to, another way to if you're not satisfied with a response is you can go back to that prompt and hit hover over it, and you get this little pencil where you can edit the message and maybe add some more specificity, add your role, add an example or some additional context or something that might be helpful, and send it, and it'll regenerate its response. So lots of different roads to get you where you want to go. Lots of options, so it's again worth playing with, worth experimenting. Last thing, how are we doing on time? Yeah, in a demo environment. Let me show you, I think, one other thing or two here. You know what? And speaking of good hygiene, let me start a new chat. I will go temporary again because I don't want it necessarily to remember this. So I'm going to switch context completely. So I started a new chat. I'm going temporary again. I wanted to talk a little bit and show you that it can take also multiple input types. So ChatGPT, like Grok, Gemini, Copilot, can take text, absolutely. But sometimes I find in class, or I found in class that this sometimes it's a big eye opener that you don't have to do. Oh, sure, yeah, I saw in chat somebody asked where this was. Up here, I'm logged in. There's this in ChatGPT. There is this like dotted dialog box. Clicking that gets turns on temporary chat. Um, uh, Sometimes this is a jaw dropper and people kick themselves a little bit. So I totally want to call this out for free. Don't ignore this little plus button because you can add files and videos. I have shown this in class and they're like, I, I have been copying and pasting things from websites, things from documents. Like, you mean I could have just uploaded my file, which put a pin in that. We'll talk more about files that you can upload later. But yes, you can. And so this is really useful too. And it'll come up in a few moments too when we're talking about prompt frameworks and feeding your model examples of things. So don't forget that this exists because examples can sometimes be really useful. So yeah, you can add files and photos. So take that away if you didn't already know that. But hopefully this isn't going to take a whole lot of time. Let me try something here. Um, a kind of a cool little tip is getting real fancy with the use of the different input types that are acceptable. So like I'll find that a lot of times I will use AI, like I'll input say some data and say, knowing that my ChatGPT or Grok or whatever, my AI assistant can handle different input types and understand them. I use that to my advantage, and that's kind of some heavy duty prompt work there. But it begins to get really smart and begins to really open up, I think, the possibilities with these AI assistants. So you could say, upload. Here's a data set, and actually, I'll do it. Let me do it now because it may take a while. I've got a sample data set here. Let me paste this in here. If it will do it, please go. Copy. Paste. There we go. And I am going to say something like, here, I'm just going to put this in here because it may take a while to generate an image. Uh, I put like a piece of data in here, and I'm going to say, because I know it can read tables and things, and I'll say, because I know another input that it can deal with is files and images and things. Darn it, it's giving me an error because probably maybe because I'm in temporary chat. But turn this table into an image. And okay, I now have an image. And from this image, give me some text, or what do you see in this image? And and that can be kind of a useful exercise that maybe for the sake of temporary chat and or time, we won't be able to demonstrate here. But perhaps you can conceptualize how powerful that can become, right? You can kind of use your AI assistant to bounce ideas off of. So maybe I've created this image or I've created this infographic, and I believe it communicates that, the bicycle is the best increase in satisfaction from year over year. And I think my visual that I created, aptly uh, uh, shows that. But you could plug it into an AI assistant and it could say, yeah, it looks like a bunch of modes of transportation and, satisfaction's gone up. The bicycle bit, that's not jumping out to you? Okay. Well, maybe I want to do something different about my design. You know what I mean? So, I think you can, as you mature and continue to experiment with your prompt engineering, with whatever your platform of choice is, I think just kind of keep this in mind that you can use the AI assistant and its ability to take multiple input types and use that to your advantage, right? Have it, here's my data, make me an image. Now, what do you get out of this image? Okay, that's good information. So that means refine this image to make it clearer that the bicycle's the way to go, that sort of thing. So all right, temporary chat, and for the sake of time, I'm just going to move us on here. But yeah, so all right, that's what I wanted to show you. Several things there in the demo environment. Let me get back to our slides here, and we'll talk about some other key concepts about prompt engineering and things. And one of those is, well, first of all, we got to define this term, right? Prompt engineering is how you write and iterate on your prompts. So what we were just doing, what we all know what engineering is, right? We were just engineering our prompts. We were playing with how we write those things. And so within prompt engineering, there are these things out there called prompt frameworks. And these are some scaffolding or like templates, blueprints, as the slide says, that guide us on how to do the work of prompt engineering. And these are really useful, and there's a bazillion of them. I won't even attempt to list all of the ones that are out there. Um, uh, and actually, this is worth a search or maybe even some work with your AI assistant. Hey, this is the type of work I do. Are there any useful prompt frameworks for a budget analyst like me, right? Um, I follow enough forums and different things where people are putting out new frameworks all the time. Hey, my name's Brian. I do, coding for basket weaving in Italy and whatever. Obviously, that's made up. But I use the Sims framework, and that helps me basket weave with AI even better, right? Like, wow, that's so obscure, but that person does exactly what I do. I'm really glad I found that, right? So worth a little bit of a search to see if there's a framework out there that is very specific to the type of work that you do. Um, so yeah, there's these frameworks that help us remember what specific things to include, and we're gonna take a look at some of those. But first, we're gonna check on our little buddy. Look at us go. We've got legs now. We're growing. We're maturing. We're getting better. Yeah, let's get some more nutrition. We'll keep. All right, at least a couple of people appreciate it. Cool. Thank you. I thought it was cute. So there's our little bud. So yeah, as I mentioned, oh yeah, there we go. Reaction explosion. Very good. Maybe I was just delayed. He's going to continue to grow, I promise, and so will you. So yeah, using these prompt frameworks can really improve the accuracy of our prompts, and right, just like we saw in that demo environment, adding that specificity gets us to a resolution so much faster. So, like I mentioned, whole bunch of these out there. Whatever field you're in, I'm sure there's a framework that does something like what you do and can probably be helpful. But usually, what I've noticed and others is an effective prompt framework probably does these types of things. It probably has some sort of role or actor. They all use different acronyms, by the way. One we talk about a lot in class is like there's race or star or all kinds of different ones, right? They're little acronyms that stand for something. But it has some sort of role or actor that you assign. Like well, anyway, I'll show you an example in a minute. You give it a task, you provide some context or some background data, and then you say something about your desired input. So an example here is act as a federal policy analyst. So see, there's our role. And summarize, that's the action I want you to take. The provided emissions rule for small transportation businesses. That's our context, our background. And I want you to do so in plain language without adding legal advice, new interpretations, or advocacy. Just calls it like you sees it, right? And obviously, you can probably imagine, right? You're going to get a much more specific response relevant to the work that you're trying to do than if you had uploaded this and said, hey, can you summarize this for me? I mean, it would probably still do a pretty good job, but you're going to get an exponentially more correct and more specific answer if you can add some details like this. So again, a lot more about this especially in the prompt classes that we teach. But screenshot this, remember this, role, action, context, something about the output, some flavor of those four things. If you can remember that, your prompts are going to be much better. And again, the benefit of these prompt frameworks is, it helps you remember that, like race, role, actor, context, example. Got it, right? So check out those frameworks. Could be pretty life-changing for your prompt engineering growth. Another kind of key term I want to talk about, since we're discussing prompt engineering, is if you've ever heard those terms, zero shot and few shot prompts. Anybody ever heard that? You can show me with reactions, maybe. Well, I guess I'm kind of giving it away because it's already up on the slide. And there's our little buddy, by the way. He's already growing. So look, we've learned a whole bunch in just a few slides. He's already grown. But like it says here on the slide, there's a couple of differences that can do some different things. Okay, some people haven't heard of this. Good. Well, I'm glad we're talking about it. Zero shot prompting is when you ask the AI to do the task without examples. So, like what we were doing at first in our demo environment. Tell me 10 things you can do for a government employee trying to improve their productivity or whatever, right? And like we see on our screen here, that relies on a really good prompt, right? And probably something pretty familiar and simple and well understood, right? So that's fine. Like, I mean, examples are fantastic to give, but maybe you don't need examples all the time because this is pretty well and easily understood, right? So that's called zero shot prompts. You don't have a shot is equaling an example in this case. So yep, no example needed. Just summarize this document for me, act as a this and do a this, and this is what I expect. So those are zero shot. Few shots are, again, if shot equals example, you can probably figure out what this means. Few shot prompting is where you give your AI assistant one or more examples of your desired output. And I want to talk here for a beat because this is incredibly helpful and has been can save you weeks of or months maybe of teeth gnashing in your prompt engineering exploration. Examples can really be quite helpful when you're trying to do something specific, and I think especially in kind of a government context where like I don't I no we do things very specifically here. We have a very specific format. I know how, this group of people or my boss or this section of the community, whatever the case is, likes to see these things. We have a specific format or whatever. So being able to provide when the scenario is as specific as that or as nuanced, you using that little plus button that we looked at, right? You could say add a file or an example of this public memo. This is the public memo that we released last time, and here's a little bit of information about our public safety initiative. Can you take this information plus the structure of this memo that we released last time and help me draft a new public safety announcement or whatever, for example. Yeah, check out that plus button and know that adding examples can be very powerful to helping you get the output that you're looking for. Which is a really good segue though to being careful about what we're putting into these things, right? So we'll transition to sort of our last leg, the one on responsibility and ethics. We'll transition now to that part of our conversation. First of all, as I'm sure we've all probably experienced already, right? Generative AI is not perfect. It can be wrong. Sometimes it's really funny how wrong it was. I think I saw out of my periphery in the chat here, somebody else noticed that something was wrong on the screen earlier. I didn't catch what it was, but it seemed to read that's what it was saying. So, right, like it can be wrong, right? And it doesn't even know that it's wrong necessarily, right? It might speak very authoritatively about it. Um, uh, and right, and we talked about we can maybe understand that, right? Because like we talked about even in this session, we understand how generative AI works, right? It's just looking at examples. Like it doesn't know. It's guessing on what it's been trained on, right? And maybe it's a new model and hasn't been trained on a lot of stuff or for very long, or humans weren't super involved, or hasn't gotten a lot of feedback yet, or all sorts of factors could be at play, right? So you've got to verify the output. The AI assistant may also be biased. I was talking in class with somebody a couple of weeks ago, and in class we did this together. It was luckily a smaller group, and we were getting really hands-on with it. And we were asking AI a specific question, and I'll spare you some of the details for speed. But it seemed really made up. And in class, we probed further and eventually got our AI assistant to admit, yeah, no such study exists. You were it, but it was very like glorifying of us. It was like, oh, you're so wise. You're right to question us. You're totally thinking the right way. And it was, very positive about how incorrect it was, right? Um, and it tried to, I don't know, surreptitiously, weasel or explain itself. So, again, it's not perfect. Here's an example, right, that we show on the screen, like it, and it tries to warn us, and it does. Actually, I think in ChatGPT down there at the bottom where you put in your prompts, it usually says down there, some little caution, right, that we verify your sources or something to that effect, right? So it's not always going to be perfect. We do need to check because it can do this thing that we call AI hallucinations. Hallucination is when AI is making things up, right? And again, we've all probably seen examples of that. Again, sometimes it's kind of funny, but sometimes, and we see this is what we see in the headlines, right? Is when it's not so funny, and when it affects the public, and like, nope, that's actually not a law, and this lawyer now has egg on their face, and there's millions of dollars lawsuits because you're quoting, laws that don't exist, and quoting people when they didn't really say that, and these types of things. So we have to be very careful for sure. One on what we're getting back from our AI assistants. So we certainly need to be cross-checking unfamiliar terms and statistics and names. That's a really big one. Why I put it up there. Again, just because it sounds smart or confident doesn't mean it's correct. Always worth it, in like I don't want to overstate it, but I do want to overstate it, right? It's so easy to do. Like, did Brian Sims really say to be or not to be, right? Was he really like a quick 20 seconds in Google will show you I was not the first person to say that, right? So it's worth the extra time, right? Also, be wary of confident specific claims without citations. As you are working with your model, if you'll probably notice if you often enough ask it to cite sources, it'll start just doing it on its own. Or, by the way, you can go into the personalization. If you're logged in to specific platforms, you can go into the personalization area and add to your instructions or something that I always want you to cite sources. That's another kind of quicker way to get there. But always asking it to cite its sources can be a real help, right? Don't just blindly trust them. Even if it shows URLs, it's worth clicking the URLs. Luckily, I haven't seen it in a long time. But it looks at the internet. That's where it finds a lot of this information. And just, you might feel a little better because, oh, it's got that little link. It shows that little pill there at the bottom. It got this from somewhere. Click it, because sometimes it'll take you to Brian Sims's college blog. And okay, well, glad I checked, right? I don't believe that. Not a scholarly source, worth trusting. So click those links, check those sources. Um, a lot of the platforms, whether you're on a free or paid version, will have some sort of like, deep research or thinking kind of mode, which takes a little bit longer. Searches, it's a little more diligent in its search. And yes, that can yield better results, but again, know that that's not perfect either, for sure. I have 1000% done used deep research for some executive orders and summarizing work and those sorts of things, and gotten, as I found out later, glad I checked it, that is definitely an executive order, and that is a reasonable summary, but that is not what that executive order says. And in this laundry list of laws and regulations, I may have missed it, but thank goodness I checked that specific one, right? So deep research is not, your rubber stamp that this is all going to be okay. And in harmony with some of the points earlier, a red flag, especially if it's uncited, right, can be some of this authoritative language like, oh, recent studies have shown, and then zero specifics. In fact, in class last week or the week before, that was our trigger for it was saying something like 80% of Americans, whatever, a recent study showed 80% of Americans, whatever, whatever. And neither of us had ever heard of that. And so, oh, interesting. What study was that from? And again, kind of the more we probed, because it was just overly vague and authoritative, that was our flag. And that's what led us to eventually find out it was making it up, right? So here's a couple of tips that will hopefully help you back at work or in your personal life. Um, and like we discussed, or like I said at the beginning of our webinar, again, this is so much about experimentation and seeing what works. And as you see what does and doesn't work for your specific task, like if you're, say, repairing a dryer or a freezer, or summarizing a memo or whatever, right? What you can learn from what you get out of it, right? And we talk about this a lot more in class, but sort of a summary of some of the big points is what we have in front of us. Based on based on what you asked it to do, certainly how accurate is it? Is it factually correct? We just talked about a lot of those things, right? Are the sources that are listed, are there sources listed at all? And if they are they legitimate? Right? We talked about that a lot. But what else should we look for? Um, did it adhere to your prompt? Did it do everything you asked it to do? Especially if you asked it to accomplish a really involved task, make sure it answered all of it, right? That could be bad. um, I have seen it do that, right? So that's worth a double check. Don't just blindly, okay, here I asked it. Oh, that looks lengthy. My boss will love it, right? Copy, paste, send. Don't do that, right? Make sure it actually adhered to the prompt that you gave it. Did it actually answer the question and solve the problem? Sometimes it doesn't know what you're talking about, and through as I have, I believe, illustrated through some of my examples given in this webinar already, like it's going to answer you no matter what. So is it actually relevant? Did it? It may just be giving you fluff, right? So that's worth a check. Is what it gave you clear and easy to understand and follow? Which is a great segue into that next one. Does it fit the tone of the audience or purpose that you're using it for? Maybe that's something, by the way, that if maybe you didn't use a prompt framework, or maybe you did use a prompt framework, but just maybe weren't specific enough in your prompt framework. But okay, yeah, now that I'm looking at this, I did use my prompt framework, but this is going to be public, and this does use some very informal language. Maybe I should whatever, this a little bit. So it's worth a step back, and certainly reviewing what your AI assistant has output, and also just for completeness, is maybe it did everything above it. It answered your prompt. It's relevant. It's clear. The tone and things fit. Zoom out for a moment. Is there anything else that is missing? Right? Sometimes that's always, in fact, in my experience, always worth the extra 10, 15 seconds to just, all right, looking at this as a new holistic story, I think I'm good here. Is there anything else that I should add to this? Which is, by the way, to take it back to one of our examples from earlier, um, another way you could possibly use AI, right? Or maybe you could use another AI model to say, all right, I think I've got this. I worked this all with ChatGPT, and now I'm going to plug it into, say, Gemini or Grok or Copilot or something. And hey, all right, I've got this memo. I think it's ready to send. Here's my audience. Here's what I'm trying to do. How would you improve this? And it's actually, that's kind of an interesting slash frustrating thing to observe. You can get it totally perfect by the standards of one model and then plug it into Gemini, who will literally give you a 6.5 out of 10. It started doing that with stuff for me lately. I don't know why, but so anyway, but that's interesting, right? You can use these AI assistants together to help, get a even more holistic and better final product. So just a few more things to talk about here. If we talked about, if you're adding files, if you're attaching things, of course, no conversation about AI for government use would be complete if we weren't talking about these standard cautions, right? We never want to enter personally identifiable information or PII, no personal health information either, right? Always want to verify those sources. If your agency or your office is allowing use of AI in the office, they almost certainly have some sort of guidance or policy out there. Always going to want to follow that guidance, of course, and do be aware of the possible bias that your AI could be expressing. If you weren't aware that such a thing was possible, hopefully, some of the stuff we talked about in this webinar, now that we understand, that cycle of generative AI and how it works and how it really is just, it doesn't know and it's trying to please you. It wants you to walk away with, feeling good and with a good answer. Um, uh, that is, good news, bad news, right? It's trying to give you what it feels like you want. So make sure it's worth taking those few extra steps that we talked about to ensure that the output is free of bias and fair and from reputable sources, those sorts of things. So, would you believe it? Look at us now. We are a fully grown little AI robot pal who even has his own little iPad now. Yeah, look at him. We learned so much. Oh, heart explosion. Yay. Awesome. So cool, right? We've learned lots of stuff. I expound on this a lot more in the prompt engineering class. Actually, I'll show you a link here in a little bit. But that's enough to get you rolling, right? Oh, and I see a comment in there. It looks like yeah, yeah, and we talk about this in class too, right? A lot of government work. Well, that's the kind of the nature of our work, right? It's got a lot of that type of information. We talk through in the data literacy classes and in the prompt classes. There are lots of tactics to work around that if you still needed to use AI. So worth some additional conversation and stuff. There are things we can do. So to close out our webinar, oh, look at us on time, right on time. Very good. We know that I hope you walk away with these few things. Clear and specific prompts are going to get you better results, right? So if it's not working for you, try to add some more specificity. Try to, just like a conversation with me, right? Try to be a little clearer, or phrase it in a different way, maybe, right? I hope you walk away with that today. Um, refine your prompt and verify the outputs, of course, right? Just because it gives you a first answer that sounds good, maybe it's great, but maybe if you keep iterating with it, might get even better. We talked about too some methods you could possibly even use. Ask the AI to double check itself, or use maybe another AI assistant to double check the first one. Check the sources yourself, of course, right? We always need a human in the loop, right? And like we talked about at the end, oh, thank you. Well, I'm like getting out of my peripheries, only some of the comments. So, always use AI responsibly, right? We have entire classes on this because it's worth it, right? It's a interesting ethical conversation, privacy, security conversation. This is all such exciting stuff, but we have to be doing it responsibly. And it's why there are entire courses out there, right? And it's why there have been a bunch of billions, billions of dollars of lawsuits, right? Where people don't do these things and find themselves quickly in hot water, right? So, yeah, thank you so much for spending all this time with us. Like we say in class, actually, here's our guy. Here's our fully grown AI bot, AI buddy. Now we're really there. If you do these next steps, you'll be there. So that's what's important. Like I say in class all the time, right? Stay curious, experiment, try some stuff, right? Practice prompting. That's what's going to, like learning a new instrument, right? That's what's going to help you get better the fastest. And we have lots of classes actually. And if it's been a while since you checked, um, you might want to go back here, graduateschool.edu/AI. I think like even in the past couple of weeks, we've put out several new classes, AI on Excel and advanced prompt engineering and a whole bunch of stuff. So yeah, worth a check out. And if you do those things, then you'll be big like our little AI buddy here. So thank you all so much for joining today's session. And yeah, and as Amanda mentioned at the beginning, we have, I think she dropped a link in the chat early on. We are doing kind of a series, a bit of a webinar bonanza these days, and several of them are on AI. And I'm doing another one here in a couple weeks on AI agents. So if you haven't signed up for that one, hope we can see you in there. And have a great day, everybody. Thanks for spending your lunch hour with me. Thanks. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody. Thank you.